so much for coming and for helping us out.
So you want me to go the.org?
Ontario Sustainable Energy Association. Great.
Okay, let's jump up, Chris.
Can I give you the camera?
Yeah. Should we use the same mic or different mics? Probably use both mics. Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Moving Planet Green Energy Field Day.
It's fantastic to see so many of you out, and it's really fantastic that the sun decided to join us. It powers the world, and it's definitely brightening all of our days.
Yay, Mother Earth came through for us. I was worried, but she came through. So welcome, everybody. Do you know what Moving Planet Green Energy Field Day is? I barely know, so I thought we'd ask Chris a couple of questions, figure out what we're doing here. So Chris, tell us, what is Moving Planet?
Sure. So it's actually the merging of two activities. First of all, 350.org has organized a worldwide event called the Moving Planet event, which is really about transitioning from fossil fuels in all of our various forms of consumption, whether it's transportation or electricity or, well, just about everything, how we produce our food, and moving towards a more sustainable way, creating sustainable urban communities and rural living around the world. And in fact, there's already been things going on around the world, starting in Africa last night for us, and I guess their morning, and slowly moving around the world. And now we've got a variety of events happening across Ontario, but there's also activities happening across the rest of North America and in South America. And then we also have the Ontario Sustainable Energy Association, which is an organization that works with communities and commercial players who want to transition towards a more sustainable energy system here in Ontario. And there's this thing called the Green Energy and Green Economy Act that allows all of us to be conservers and generators of clean, renewable energy, which is fantastic. So we really wanted to raise awareness and to do a Doors Open event showcasing the amazing things that are happening across Ontario. And what's really cool is that this is not the only event. We actually have events happening in Aurora, Burlington, Caledon, Chute à la Blondeau, Cobden, Hamilton, Innerkip, Markham, Midland, Mississauga, Orangeville, Reboro, Sault Ste. Marie, Scarborough, Smithville, St. Eugene, Tamworth, Toronto. There's a couple other ones going on right now too. Vaughan, Windsor, and Wolfe Island, which is amazing. So.
And Chris, can you tell us who are the groups that sponsored today's event, and who is 350.org?
Sure. Well, I'm gonna talk a bit about some of the other sponsors a little bit later, but 350.org is an organization that's trying to address climate change around the world, and it's made up of people like you and I. And a few of our sponsors are actually here, and I'll just give a few points of recognition just as we get things rolling. We're actually going to announce the winner of a contest a little bit later this afternoon, but I just wanted to point out this amazing solar system that's over here. AS Solar helped us get this whole event started and the competition called What's Next, and OSM has donated this 10 kilowatt solar system worth around $70,000. That a community is going to win a little bit later today, and we'll tell you who the winners are as well as some of the other winners in a little bit.
Right. We also want to tell you a bit of what's happening today so you can plan your day accordingly. We're going to have some speakers throughout the next 2 hours, some really high-profile people in the city who are really making a difference, starting with David Miller, followed by Penelope, followed by Sean Patrick Stencil at Greenpeace, followed by Ryan Dimet at Zeitgeist, followed by Jose Echeverry at York U, and then Adrian Mugnato-Hamu from the Green Party of Canada, the climate critic. And then we're having some awards, some music, entertainment. So we'll be here with a schedule throughout the afternoon, probably till about 6 o'clock. So stick around with us.
Great, thank you. So I'm just going to give a few props out. There's a number of different organizations that have booths here today, so make sure you go and you pop in and say hello. Make sure you do the guessing game and figuring out the various types of poop from ZooShare. You can win a share in their project. And thanks to the German Chamber of Commerce, the agri-energy producers, CanSIA, the Canadian Environmental Law Association, Canadian Manufacturers and Exporters, the Citizens Climate Lobby, the Conservation Council of Ontario, Environmental Defence, Pembina, Trek, Lead Now, the Ontario Federation of Agriculture, Windfall Ecology Centre, Tides, Switch Kingston, Windshare, and of course 350.org, and the Clean Air Alliance.
Awesome. Well, let's introduce our first speaker, and that is David Miller, former mayor of Toronto. Imagine that, a mayor not named after a car.
After a beer.
Or a beer, yes. He's named after a beer. So David Miller was elected Toronto's 63rd mayor in 2003 and was re-elected in 2006. During this time, David's mandate was to make Toronto a world-class city, one of prosperity, livability, and opportunity. David is a leading advocate for the creation of sustainable urban economies. In addition to being a strong and forceful champion for the next generation of jobs through sustainability, he advises companies and governments on practical measures to make this happen. David Miller.
Thank you. Thanks very much, everyone, for your very warm welcome. And first of all, I do want to acknowledge the organizers. And I can't go through the whole list again, but I can certainly thank the key organizers, OSEA, which does extremely important work in this province and can't be underestimated, Moving Planet, and of course 360.org. And let's thank all of them for their really hard work. And I want to thank all of you, not just for the gracious welcome, not just for being here today, but almost everybody who's here, one way or another, is working to advance the cause of sustainability in our province, in our city, and on our planet. And it won't happen without you. So thank you very much. And I hope after today that you've got renewed energy to keep doing the right thing and to think about the future. So give yourselves a big round of applause. So I've been an environmentalist for a very long time, since I was a boy. And as you may know, I'm originally from a very small farming village in England. It was a really small village. There was a church, there was a working blacksmith, there was an egg farm, a milk farm, and 2 pubs. Of course, typical of small villages in England, about 70 people, but 35 of us had to be in one pub and 35 in the other. But from, my earliest memories in that village, people lived a very sustainable lifestyle. They all had compost heaps. That's just what you did. We reused everything because people didn't have a lot of money. And if there's something you couldn't reuse, there was a man who came around once every couple of weeks, who we call recycling today, but back then we called him a rag and bone man. And he'd pick up things and remake them so they were reused. And I think the environmental values I have as a father, as an elected official, and as the mayor of Toronto started in my childhood. And they continued when I came to Canada. Very early on, I saw a film called Paddle to the Sea. Have people seen Paddle to the Sea? Only people over the age of 35, apparently. So Paddle to the Sea is about the incredible degradation of the Great Lakes that we allowed to happen post-war. And it's about a little tiny carved boat that an Aboriginal Canadian makes and floats it down through the ocean. It floats. The movie's really dramatic because you see it floating through all of this pollution. And I think the fact that only those of us who are a little bit older in this crowd have seen that speaks to a really important value that the organizers want to emphasize today, which is that we're not going to succeed in saving our planet and living to the highest possible environmental standards for our children and grandchildren unless our children and grandchildren have a huge part to play in that fight. They need to understand the facts. They need to understand how serious climate change is. They need to understand local environmental issues. For example, there's a mega quarry being proposed just north of Toronto. It is shameful because if they dig that quarry, they're going to affect the headwaters of 5 separate rivers. It is absolutely crazy to mine where 5 pristine rivers start, all of which flow down into Lake Ontario, and as you all know, our water system's connected. Our young people deserve the facts about these issues. They deserve to know, and they deserve to be a part of it. Yesterday I spoke at TEDx conference, and a speaker before me said, young people aren't the future, they're the present. And that speaker was exactly right. So for everybody here who hasn't seen Paddle to the Sea, work with your peers, work with young people. Let's make sure that everybody understands the very serious threat of climate change and the very serious local environmental issues that we have in this city, this province, in this country. And most of all, I hope that people understand that there's solutions. And what I've dedicated myself to, post my life as mayor, is to working on those solutions. You know, whether it's at my private law firm, which has a number of clients that are green energy producers, or other environmental sustainable businesses, public speaking opportunities, or working with the World Bank and other organizations who are trying to look at how to green cities and how to green our planet. And the truth is that the opportunities are all there. And the other truth, and we're always told what I think is just a bald lie. We're always told we can choose between the environment and the economy. We can have one, but not both. And if you just look on its face, it's ridiculous because the economy exists in the environment. So if we don't have an environment, we're not going to have much of an economy at all. But it's also... It's not my original line, but I kind of like it, so I use it all the time. Feel free to steal it as well. It's also not true economically. And it isn't true for a very simple reason. What's good for the environment is getting rid of waste, and what's good for the economy is getting rid of waste. And we can find ways to get rid of waste for business that create environmental opportunities and create business opportunities, and most of all, create jobs and employment. And I think if we're going to succeed for the future, if we're going to ensure our young people succeed, that's exactly the kind of path we need to take. And you start doing that by thinking environmentally and sustainably. And I know it can be done because we did it at the City of Toronto. You know, we did it at the City of Toronto for 7 years. And I'll give you two examples. We set very ambitious cuts to lower the greenhouse gas emissions, not just from the City of Toronto operations. In fact, we've lowered those 40% from 1990, but from the City of Toronto as a whole. And our targets were Kyoto Plus. We wanted to get to 80% reduction by 2050. And people say, well, it's nice to have targets, but how are you going to do that? Aren't you going to hurt the economy? And the answer was no. And the way we did it, and it's still underway, but the way we did it was an electricity strategy that said we're going to conserve energy first. The second thing we're going to do is create a smart grid. And the third thing we'll do is use distributed energy that produces in green ways all around the city. And all of that creates jobs, all of that saves energy, and the result of that electricity strategy, which is Toronto Hydro's responsibility, is technically feasible and is underway, meant that we could meet the greenhouse gas reduction targets that the City of Toronto set out, and we could create wealth and opportunity in this city and support our growing green energy industries, all right here in Toronto.